Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome to the Wednesday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is August 23rd, 2017. When we're not here on the show, you could always check out our information by going to weather.gov/Alaska and just click on the region of your choice or the area of your choice. And you can always reach us on our phone line by going to 1-800-472-0391 and then selecting the area that you want to hear on the phone. And let's move on to our weather for the day. We do have a large area of clouds spreading all across Alaska from south to north. On this map, just take a quick notice here, these lighter colors across the southwest extending out to the northern areas of the Bering. This is due to a warm system that came up from the North Pacific and bringing up some moisture and rain across the interior locations. And just to the north of this system, the darker colors represent a colder air mass that's coming down along the Bering Strait as a low pressure system circulates in that direction. I'll put this into motion here and you can see how these two systems are interacting, and the moisture plume is making a surge northward and pulling more moisture into the Kenai Peninsula area as it heads further to the east. Now, across the southeastern locations, we do have a mature low that's starting to deteriorate, and that is spinning over the southeast. However, we've got some dry air entrenched on the backside of the system. When these systems begin to diminish, they do bring in that drier air on the backside, and that helps really slow their spin down. Now let's just take a look at that system one more time. You can see that spin is just towards the southern Lynn Canal as it moves inland. The rain along the southeast today tapered off to showers by late day, with drier air mass moving into the eastern areas of the Gulf of Alaska. Now across the southwest, here's an occluded front that raced across the southern areas of the Bering and pushing the front currently stretched from the Kuskokwim Delta on over towards the southern areas of the Kenai. There were some prefrontal showers that were occurring ahead of this system, with the upslope areas receiving the most amount of rain, mainly across the northern Susitna Valley along the Alaska Range. Now, in the last 24 hours, the highest amount of precipitation was reported over at St. Paul at 6,600 as this system moved through. Notable for them, I believe that's a record amount for St. Paul today. Now, this rain is extending from just south of Kodiak and moving up into the Cook Inlet this afternoon, all the way through the Chugach, and extending all the way east out through the eastern Alaska Range. Now, on the north side of this system, we do have some light showers developing across the interior areas. With further north, we're seeing more of a weak low pressure system, a weak trough along the northern Brooks Range there. However, we do have high pressure off to the northwest area, and this is bringing a cold air mass down towards the Bering Strait. Some weak disturbances in the flow aloft are moving up and just producing some light rain showers, and we do have more of a stable air mass across the northern tier of the state, so patchy fog in those locations. Across the backside of the low pressure system in the Bering, we also have some patchy fog along the ridge that's moving into the western waters. Now, as we head into tonight, expect the ridging across the Bering to eventually move a little bit further to the east towards the Pribilof Islands, and that's going to be bringing some continued patchy fog for much of the area. And then the low pressure system across the southwest is going to begin to slow down its spin, however, maintaining a 994 millibar low. Now, the front ahead of it will be kind of stalling across the northern areas of the Gulf as it moves through, with a weak trough staying in place across the central areas of the state. On the backside of this system, we'll have a stronger northerly flow between 25 to 35 miles per hour, with higher gusts coming through the Alaska Peninsula during the late hours tonight. I expect mainly a light rain pattern with some patchy fog condition across the coast there. Now to the north, a significant cold front is going to be dropping towards the Brooks Range. We're going to be seeing a mix of rain and snow. The snow is primarily going to be along the cooler elevations of the Brooks Range tonight, not expecting any accumulations tonight. However, any snow that falls will be melting fairly rapidly because the surface temperatures are so warm. Now across the southeast, we will see some continued shower activity. However, the short wave ridging in the surface pattern is a good indication that it's going to be on the drier side as we head into the overnight hours. And then for Thursday, primarily we're going to have ridging during the early part of the day, but the green indicates rain, which is going to be moving in later in the afternoon as this front just kind of nudges a little bit further east and north across the Gulf waters. So we should start out the southeast dry early, and then the rain will move back in late day on Thursday. Now the surface feature will be stalling across the southwest here and bring ongoing precipitation for areas across south central and interior locations, with the trough maintaining a very similar position during the overnight hours. We also have the front that's to the north. Once it drops down to the Brooks Range, it'll be draped from the northeastern Beaufort seacoast back towards the Seward Peninsula. This system is going to bring a cold air mass with the coldest temps across the central areas of the Brooks Range, looking for snow accumulations generally above 2,000 feet, with accumulations by the time we get through Thursday night between 2 to 6 inches, and again, that's above 2,000 feet. The lower elevations will see some light snow accumulations, but that'll be melting. Like I said, the ground is still very warm at the surface. Now the north coast, northwest coast will see some light rain. We'll probably see some light rain across the northeastern Beaufort seacoast and light rain behind the system. Just the colder air mass kind of sinks to the south there across the central areas. And we'll see that continued gusty northerly flow all across the Bering Strait down towards the Alaska Peninsula. Very windy conditions are expected, especially through the channeled terrain along the Alaska Peninsula. And expect also those winds to be picking up tonight across the southeast and continuing into Thursday morning along the inner channels. Now across the western waters, expecting that ridge to move across, a little bit lighter wind speeds. However, winds will be changing direction ahead of this front back out of the southeast direction as that front approaches and gets closer. For your Friday, look for low pressure across the southwest to continue. However, that spin is going to slow down. It's going to maintain a 994 millibar low, so still going to keep that gradient on the backside of this low pressure system. So continued windy conditions across the Alaska Peninsula as that ridge begins to press a little bit further to the east and south. Then the next system across the western waters are going to be seeing that increased southeasterly flow along with rain. And on Friday, the panhandle, the northern panhandle, will see the heaviest rain amounts as a trough lingers across the northern part of the Gulf back towards Cordova. We'll see the highest rainfall amounts there. Across the interior locations and south central, mainly just showers through the day and then tapering off, becoming a little bit drier late day into Friday. The system starts winding down in the upper levels. And then across the central Brooks Range, continued snow across the area in the central and eastern Brooks Range. Across the northwest coast, a little bit tighter gradient here will bring more of a north to northeasterly flow across all the way through Dead Horse as the pressure gradient is squeezed and becomes a little bit tighter as a ridge from the north drops to a colder air mass on towards the south. Now, looking at your temperatures today, rather cool across the region, with temperatures ranging mainly in the mid-50s to lower 60s. Northway was the warmest in the central locations, up to 64 degrees before cooling off with the clouds later this afternoon. And then across the northern tier of the state, mainly in the 40s for the afternoon temperatures. The coldest area of the state was over there across Eagle. They had gotten down to 35 degrees during the overnight hours. Now across the western tier of the state, saw mainly in the mid-40s with mid-40s to lower 50s for Bristol Bay and the Kuskokwim region. And across the western peninsula and the Bering, they saw temperatures primarily in the mid-50s, and also across the Bering, mostly in the low 50s. Now temperatures for tonight are going to be coolest across the northern tier of the state. Temperatures below freezing across the Brooks Range is most notable here, and we're also dropping those temperatures with that cold front across the northern tier of the state back into the 30s. Now the central and southern locations are all going to be ranging in the mid-40s to lower 50s along the Gulf Coast locations, and then across the Bering primarily near 50 plus or minus a few degrees. Temperatures for tomorrow's highs are going to be warmest once again across the central interior areas of the state, a little bit cooler to the north. Dead Horse and west are going to probably see some of the cooler temps that they've seen in the last few days, with temperatures dropping into the upper 30s. Not going to see a warming trend tomorrow much, maybe 2 to 5 degrees with that cold front dropping down through the day. The southern tier of the state will mainly be in the mid-50s along with the Bering locations, and a little break across the southeast will let those temperatures rise into the upper 50s to lower 60s towards Annette. Looking at your flying weather for tomorrow, IFR conditions across many areas of the southwest and all along the Gulf Coast. Also, MVFR conditions across the southern areas of the state will be widespread, and IFR to MVFR conditions across the north and the northwestern areas, with the Bering seeing mainly MVFR to IFR conditions. Now across the area for the afternoon hours, maybe some improvement across the northern tier of the state, but still MVFR, and as well as for the Bering, mainly MVFR with a few IFR conditions across much of the chain. Now the Gulf waters and the southeast will primarily see MVFR conditions widespread, with IFR conditions as well across the Alaska Range. The Kenai Peninsula is going to have some problems along with the northern Panhandle and the northern channels. For your passes in more depth, we have Anaktuvik at IFR, as well as Adigan for tomorrow is going to be IFR, and Lake Clark, Merrill Pass will both be MVFR all day tomorrow, and we're seeing Rainy Pass MVFR with the IFR for the east entrance, and we'll see Windy Pass going from IFR to MVFR late day, and we'll see Isabel Pass is going to be IFR to MVFR as well. Now Mentasta will go MVFR to VFR in the afternoon, and we're expecting Tenedo to be MVFR for the entire day, and Portage is going to stay down in IFR conditions. Now Chilkoot and White Pass will also join them with IFR conditions all day. Looking at your freezing levels, they are dropping here across the northwest. So it's going from 2,000 to 4,000 feet across the Brooks Range, with generally between 6,000 feet to 8,000 feet across the Gulf waters. Now out towards the west, higher conditions across the western waters rises from 6,000 to 12,000 feet along the Aleutian chain. Your icing for tomorrow concerns are going to be across much of the state between 7 to above 6,000 to 8,000 feet towards the south. So conditions, of course, are going to be a little bit lower across the northern tier of the state. Your jet stream flow is an amplified pattern with a troughing, having a jet max there across the southern Gulf at 90 knots. And as we look at your pattern, at 9,000 feet, we have this low pressure system centered across the southwest. The highest speeds are between the low pressure and the high pressure to the west, between 25 to 40 knots. And then across the northern tier of the state, actually the speeds are a little bit slower, between 10 to 30 knots out of the north. The southeast is going to also see a pretty fast jet speed just off the coast there, between 20 to 35 knots. And here's the western waters, primarily a weaker flow towards the western Aleutians with the ridge moving across. A stacked system nearly, but The strongest wind speeds are also across the central areas of the Gulf there between 40 to 45 knots. Change of direction around the low pressure system. Very quick jet speed across the northern tier of the Gulf, with slightly higher speeds there for the inner channels between 20 to 35 knots all along the Gulf waters. A little bit lighter flow across the interior and northerly flow across the towards the Brooks Range and the west coast. Looking at your turbulence tomorrow, we are going to have that low-level jet setting up across the Gulf, so below 4,000 feet out there, and a little bit stronger turbulence across the Alaska Peninsula below 4,000 feet. And that pretty much sums up your turbulence. We'll be back in a moment with your marine forecast.
Hi, I'm Mr. Bale. One of the nicest things about this business is the fact that you meet so many great people and become really good friends over the years. And it just happens that Mr. Bale is one of those people who I consider one of my great friends. Mo is from Transport Canada. He never turns us down unless he's got a conflict in a schedule. And we've had him up here, excuse me, several times. We always just enjoy him thoroughly. And with that, I'll say welcome back again, Mo.
Well, thank you very much, Jenny. Very kind introduction. It does kind of set a pace that may be difficult to keep up with here, but we'll do the best that we can. It's gratifying to see so many faces in the group today. Nice for pilots to all get together and share ideas, I guess. I better get some electronic wizardry started here and remind me not to look into that light again. Wow. My name is Mo Bale. I'm what they call a regional aviation safety officer. When you work for the federal government in Canada, you get called a lot of different things, okay? Believe me. But I'm going to accept Mo, so you can just call me that if you like, and I would appreciate that. Now, the regional aviation safety officer, the region that I'm specifically tasked with developing and presenting programs such as this, is not unique, but there's a reason why I'm here, and one of those reasons is that my region borders on Alaska. It also borders on Montana, and I do similar programs for them in the lower 48. The region is bordered by the Alcan Highway, okay, so that it falls entirely within my region. That's one of the ways that it's set up geographically. So I cover all of the province of Alberta, the western half of the Northwest Territories in the Arctic, all of the Yukon Territory, and a little northeastern corner of British Columbia. They like to think of themselves as being Albertans anyway. And we do too. They're pretty good. Now the branch that I work for in Transport Canada is called the System Safety Branch. We used to be called Aviation Safety Programs, but because of some changes to the, not specific duties, but some additional requirements of our branch within, they found that the name System Safety was probably defined our duties just a little bit more accurately. The closest liaison that I have is exactly with Joel Wilcox with safety programs with the FAA. That's a very close comparison. The mission that I have is similar as well, and it's a mission that's probably shared by most pilots, actually, whether you think of it that way or not. And it's to actively search for safety hazards and develop programs of accident prevention. I have a lot of people helping me to do that, people inside the department and people outside the department as well, the sharing of information, if you would. The presentation tonight deals with safety. It deals with judgment, primarily pilot judgment. So that's where the focus is going to be. But to begin with, I'd like to put up a definition of safety, where the responsibilities lie, if you would, that it is in fact the responsibility of the flight crew, and more specifically, and in most cases, the pilot in command. The definition here infers that there's a skill requirement, that as a skilled pilot gains experience through the years, their ability to exercise good judgment will increase. And that's true. I concentrate on judgment and the decision-making type of thing, judgment being the key element in the decision-making process, but not to the exclusion of attaining and maintaining a very high degree of skill in your chosen field, your endeavor. The stick and rudder skills, all the other skills that go along with flying an airplane must be there first, and then you use those as a basis to make good judgments. Occasionally, and when I say occasionally, it's rare, but it happens, that pilots will use the word judgment as an excuse for not maintaining a high level of skill. You really cannot trade one for the other, if you can get my understanding. You have to attain and maintain that high level of skill first. So please do that and ensure that it's there as well. And then, with experience, judgment becomes better. It's important for us as pilots to recognize that there's a very delicate balance that exists in our recreation or our field of career or whatever else it may be. Are there some professional pilots in the crowd, or pretty well all general aviation? Is there a mix? Who flies for a living? Couple? Anybody fly helicopters? Anybody a rotary wing pilot? Joel? Oh, sit up front so I don't have to talk loud. Okay? Yeah. Now, I hate to make jokes about helicopter pilots. They have enough trouble, don't they? All those moving parts. Holy cow.
All right, and welcome back to the show. And now on to your marine forecast. Just taking a look at the sea ice edge, it is going to continue to erode as we head through the next few days. And this area northeast of Barrow, we're going to be seeing that melt, and that should completely melt in the next few weeks. So continued melting will bring the season minimals in about 2 to 3 weeks. Now, onto your southeast areas, looking at a southerly flow, a little bit stronger across the northern waters there at 35 knots, so gales and small crafts to the north. And the inner channels will see seas between 3 to 5 feet on Thursday and between 6 to 8 feet in the outer waters. Looking at your Friday forecast, a southerly flow continues with small crafts there to the north, and then seas on that day will be between 3 to 5 feet across the inner waters, and the outer waters will see between 8 to 9 foot seas. Now your western areas of the Gulf, and we're going to see the strongest winds here between 25 to 35 knots there to the north, with the higher gusts across the Hitchinbrook entrance. We'll see more of an easterly flow across the Prince William Sound at 30 knots, small crafts. And then a northerly flow will become more southwesterly around the Kodiak Island. So a little bit change of a direction there. And seas on this day are going to range between 4 to 11 feet with the highest seas across the Gulf waters there. And on your Friday, expect another change of wind direction between 15 to 30 knots overall, so small crafts out there, be advised. And then we'll see seas between 4 to 11 feet. And then for your Alaska Peninsula, we'll see a west to northwesterly flow, a little bit more of a southwesterly flow, though, towards Kodiak Island. All small crafts on this day with seas between 6 to 11 feet, highest seas on the Pacific side. And on Friday, more of a west to northwesterly direction for the area, with gales coming back into the forecast. And seas on this day are going to be between 13 feet, for the Alaska Peninsula areas. And now looking at the Aleutians, let me just step off the screen so you can see the entire area. We'll see seas between 7 to 11 feet, and we'll see winds, a change of direction from north becoming more easterly across the western Aleutians there. And then on your Friday forecast, we'll see a change of wind directions across the entire area. We're going to go more of a northwesterly and become more southeasterly towards the west, with small crafts out to the west and to the east, primarily that ridge will keep things a little bit calmer across the central Aleutians there, and seas will be between 5 to 8 feet on Friday. Your west waters, west coast areas are going to see small crafts out of the north to northwest direction, all small crafts with seas between 5 to 9 feet. And then your Friday is a pretty much small craft day for most of the area, 7 to 10 feet for your seas. Across your north and northwest coastal directions, north flow be around 15 knots, becoming 20 knots towards Kotzebue Sound. Seas on this day are going to be between 4 to 5 feet for the area. And then we'll see on Friday a little bit change of wind direction across the northwest coast there out of the northeast direction, and all between 10 to 20 knots. It's up a little bit stronger for Kotzebue Sound. Small crafts there at 25 knots, and seas will be between 3 to 6 feet. Just taking a recap of your forecast, we have low pressure that's going to continue to spin tonight across the southwest, bring another round of rain to the south central locations up through the interior as the boundary becomes stalled. Now we'll see patchy fog conditions and cooler temps on the backside of this low pressure system, along with a stronger northerly flow through the Alaska Peninsula. A cold front will be dropping into the northern tier of the state, bringing a mix of rain and snow for the primarily for the Brooks Range, but might see a few flurries just to the north there. And the southeast will stay in a drier pattern through your day on Thursday, and then rain will move back in Thursday afternoon as low pressure swings another front across the region. Now the interior locations will stay under showery conditions, while south central and the southwest sees rain through the day. Snow across the central Brooks Range will be totaling between 2 to 6 inches by Thursday night, and the western Bering is going to see ridging bring some foggy conditions in through your Friday. Thanks for staying with us tonight, and
These
hope to see you back
forecasts are to
tomorrow.
be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.